With the King reportedly ruling out any suggestion of a part-time role for the Duke of Sussex. Our Europe correspondent Ben Downey reports.
In a stunning twist that has sent shockwaves through the royal world, Meghan Markle is now appealing directly to King Charles after a final, heartbreaking decision from the palace. For months, tension simmered quietly behind closed doors, but insiders say the King's latest ruling has drawn a bold and unmovable line, one Meghan never believed would actually come. So what happened inside those royal walls? Why has King Charles taken such an uncompromising stance? Today, we break down Meghan's desperate attempt to regain favor and the King's definitive judgment. The decision Meghan never truly believed possible has finally arrived. Quietly, privately, and with a level of finality so absolute that those present say there was no space for debate, persuasion, or charm. Senior palace insiders reveal that King Charles has now delivered what they are calling his final decision about Meghan. It doesn't just close a door, it ends an entire chapter, one many within the monarchy never thought he would dare to close. Witnesses say the words spoken inside the palace weren't loud or emotional. There were no raised voices, no dramatic pauses, just a calm, deliberate tone. The tone Charles uses only when his mind is completely made up. And his message was unmistakable. It's over to end the days leading up to this moment. Pressure had been building, slowly at first, then loudly over the weekend. For years, the King had allowed Meghan not just a marriage or a title, but an entire era, long, chaotic, and unpredictable. Many believed he had given her more patience than she deserved. But now that chapter has been firmly and officially closed. When word of the King's final decision reached Montecito, the reaction was immediate. Sources say Meghan froze, her team went into full crisis mode, and even Harry was blindsided. For the first time in years, the palace acted with absolute clarity. No hesitation, no loopholes, and no fear of public backlash. For years, Meghan continued using her HRH styling despite being instructed not to by the late Queen Elizabeth II, something that insiders say deeply frustrated Prince William. But this time, Charles made no effort to smooth things over. He wasn't compromising, he wasn't mediating, and he wasn't trying to keep the peace, something he had spent decades doing. This time, the King made a final, irreversible choice that begins with what the palace calls a necessary final boundary, a boundary Meghan never imagined Charles would actually enforce, and one that changes everything moving forward. Many forget that William once said Harry's attendance at the coronation would be extraordinary, a sign of just how fractured the family had become. As one longtime royal watcher put it, "I don't think there is a way back." But what truly pushed Charles to act? To understand that, you have to look at what has been unfolding quietly behind palace walls for months. This wasn't about a single headline or documentary. It wasn't one interview, one podcast, or one speech. It was a pattern, slow, steady, and impossible for the institution to ignore. Senior advisors had been tracking a rising escalation long before the public noticed anything. Palace insiders report that King Charles had grown increasingly concerned about how Meghan was presenting herself in recent appearances, brand teasers, and public messaging. Subtle references to royal life, carefully chosen words implying an ongoing connection, and high-profile projects all blurred the line between her personal brand and the royal legacy. In short, Meghan was positioning herself as if she still held an active role within the institution, despite having stepped away. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Prince William was reportedly preparing a major campaign that could see several minor royals stripped of their titles, a sign that the monarchy is tightening its structure and preparing for a more streamlined, disciplined future. At first, King Charles chose to remain calm. He didn't rush, react impulsively, or let emotion dictate his actions. Instead, he observed, listened, and quietly hoped the situation would settle itself. But then came what palace insiders now call the final wave of warning signs. A new brand launch, a perfectly rehearsed public speech, a string of high-profile meetings, and an unexpected international campaign all signaled that Meghan was steadily increasing her influence. One issue, however, struck the King on a deeply personal level: Catherine. It became painfully clear that Meghan was still drawing power from the monarchy, its symbols, its history, its prestige, long after stepping away from royal duties. Advisors warned Charles that this could easily spin out of control, threatening the family's image. One bluntly said, "Your Majesty, this will not stop on its own." That moment marked a turning point. For the first time, every top advisor, from communications teams to legal experts and senior protocol officers, agreed completely. The monarchy needed to act decisively and immediately. Waiting any longer risked allowing Meghan to reshape the royal story entirely. Behind closed doors, King Charles made a decision insiders describe as years in the making. Quietly, the palace shifted into a controlled, almost silent lockdown. Over several days, Charles held a series of intense, high-level meetings. These were crisis meetings, not friendly check-ins, involving the most powerful figures in the institution: the Privy Council, senior communications leaders, legal strategists, protocol experts, and advisors who only appear when the monarchy faces a long-term threat. Sources describe Charles entering these meetings with calm but unshakable firmness, the kind of certainty that signals he already knows the answer before anyone speaks. Documents were laid across tables, timelines studied, and Meghan's public appearances, branding strategies, interviews, and subtle references to royal life analyzed frame by frame, line by line. Advisors warned that if the king failed to act, he could lose control of the royal narrative. Another pointed out that Meghan's rising influence in the US could create global confusion. Two versions of the monarchy, one official and one unofficial. Charles listened carefully, not with anger, but with steady determination that even his closest advisors did not expect. By the end of the final meeting, the atmosphere had shifted. The palace would no longer wait for the next documentary, leak, or media appearance. They would act decisively, issuing a decision so clear and final it could not be undone. Witnesses say the king closed the meeting with a single, quiet sentence that felt like the end of a chapter. This chapter must end. Within hours, the machinery of the monarchy moved. Papers were drafted, notifications prepared, and a discreet courier assigned. And Meghan's response to the king's decision? That, insiders say, was immediate and unforgettable. The moment Meghan realized it was over was unlike anything the palace had ever done before. When King Charles's final decision reached Montecito, it came without ceremony, no formal letter in a velvet envelope, no press announcement, no polite warning. It arrived quietly, privately, and unmistakably. This message was meant for Meghan alone. According to those present, Meghan was completely caught off guard. At first, she wasn't angry or upset, just stunned. She read the message once, then again, slowly, until it fully sank in. Advisors describe her voice shifting from confusion to disbelief, and then, almost immediately, to panic. She demanded answers. Who approved the decision? Had Harry been informed? Surely there must be a misunderstanding. But there wasn't. Unlike previous palace actions, this one was final. No negotiation. No appeal. No gentle wording to soften the blow. It was the end, and it arrived exactly as the king intended. Insiders say Meghan never saw this coming, not at this moment, not in this way. She had always believed that the palace would leave a small window open for her. A chance to return, to rewrite the story, to rebuild what was broken. But this decision slammed that window shut for good. Sources describe her pacing around the room, her steps restless and uneven, her voice shaking as she tried to process what had happened. She wanted to know who had influenced the king, who had pushed for such a firm decision, and why it was happening now. When she realized this wasn't a suggestion or warning but a final declaration, everything changed. There were tears, rising frustration, and a deep sense of betrayal. She felt the weight of a moment that could not be undone. For the first time since stepping away from royal life, Meghan wasn't just being ignored or sidelined, she was being cut off completely. Every phone call, every rushed message, every attempt to control the narrative revealed just how shaken she truly was. The palace had drawn a firm line, and Meghan found herself unmistakably on the outside. But Meghan wasn't the only one affected. Prince Harry also felt the full weight of the king's decision. Insiders say Harry was informed before Meghan, not as a favor, but because King Charles believed Harry deserved to hear it directly rather than through a leak or headline. That moment of courtesy, however, became the start of something much bigger and far more painful. Those close to the situation describe Harry's reaction as a mix of shock, frustration, and a heavy, emotional realization. No matter what he did, he could never fully protect the two worlds he was living between. When the king explained the decision, Harry pushed back, not loudly, not angrily, but with raw emotion. He asked for time, pleaded for reconsideration, and wondered if the decision could be softened, delayed, or made less harsh. But Charles did not budge. A senior aide described the king's tone as calm, steady, respectful, but absolutely unshakable. It was at that moment Harry finally confronted a truth he had avoided for years. His father wasn't just drawing a line between the palace and the public, he was drawing a line between the institution and Meghan. When Harry finally told Meghan the news, everything at Montecito shifted. There were tears, not just from Meghan, but from Harry as well. He knew that whatever happened next, he would once again be forced into a role he had long resented, the bridge between two worlds that no longer wished to meet. One source put it simply, Harry wasn't just upset with King Charles, he was facing the reality of a boundary he could not cross, a decision that would redefine his family forever. Prince Harry was devastated. This time, he couldn't fix it. The tension between father and son had never been simple, but this moment created a new kind of distance, quiet, painful, and so deep that neither side knew how to repair it. In private moments no one else witnessed, Harry, like everyone inside the palace, asked the same question. If the king had truly made his final decision, what exactly did that leave for Meghan's future? For the first time since Meghan stepped away from royal life, King Charles issued a formal, institution-level directive so absolute that it left no room for argument, negotiation, or reversal. According to palace insiders, the decision contained 3 decisive points, each more forceful than anything that had come before. First, Meghan will no longer be allowed to reference, hint at, or attach herself to the monarchy in any upcoming projects, brands, or media ventures without explicit written permission from the palace. The era of gray zone royal branding, where she could imply a connection without approval, is officially over. Second, any remaining royal privileges or courtesies, small informal allowances that were rarely mentioned, have now been fully revoked. Travel perks, symbolic associations, and quiet access to certain circles have all quietly disappeared. One insider described this as a reset of boundaries that should have been established years ago. From this moment on, Meghan will stand entirely on her own. When disputes arise, there will be no softening statements, behind-the-scenes corrections, or diplomatic cushioning. One advisor emphasized that this isn't punishment. Rather, it's protection for the institution. And while the paperwork itself was strict, insiders say it only tells half the story. The other half is delivered in silence, the kind of silence the monarchy has perfected over centuries. That silence unsettled Meghan the most. King Charles attached no explanation, no preface, no gesture of reconciliation. He simply allowed the document to speak for itself. Within the palace walls, the meaning was unmistakable. The monarchy is no longer playing defense. For years, senior royals had maintained calm, absorbed criticism, avoided confrontation, and hoped situations would settle naturally. But this decision marks a turning point. Silence no longer means protection. Silence now means boundary. By revoking privileges, controlling the use of royal identity, and refusing to intervene on Meghan's behalf in future controversies, the palace sent a message that needed no signatures or explanation. The monarchy would no longer serve as a springboard for personal branding. This is not about anger or revenge. It is structural. The king's target was not Meghan personally, but the pattern she represented and any similar patterns in the future. What Meghan may have assumed was a temporary pause or public relations chill is now permanent. This is not a family argument. It is about precedent, legacy, and control of the royal narrative. In that narrative, Meghan has officially moved from a royal figure to a private individual, bound by the limitations that status demands. The palace doesn't need to say it aloud. The document already does. This chapter has ended, and a new one begins without her influence. From the outside, it may look like another dramatic headline, a private clash, or a continuation of the royal feud. But the implications run far deeper. Senior royal analysts say King Charles's decision is about the next decade, the next generation, and the long-term stability of the monarchy itself. For years, the palace assumed that younger royals, Harry, Meghan, and their children, could exist at the edges of the institution without disturbing its foundation. That assumption has slowly unraveled. The rise of influencer culture, the blending of celebrity and royalty, the monetization of personal narratives, and the global media attention built around emotional storytelling have all created pressures that the monarchy can no longer ignore. The monarchy was never designed to handle someone like Meghan Markle. With her Hollywood background, massive global following, and uncanny ability to dominate headlines, she became the clearest example of how quickly boundaries could blur. One advisor put it simply, "If we don't set boundaries now, there won't be any boundaries left later, so what could Meghan's next step be?" For months, people believed King Charles was too gentle, too cautious, too willing to leave doors open. But this moment proved something very different. When the crown's reputation and integrity are at stake, Charles acts decisively, even if it means ending a relationship that once captured the world's attention. Supporters of Meghan see the move as harsh. Critics see it as long overdue. The palace sees it as necessary. This was never about punishing Meghan. It was about protecting the monarchy from a future where its image, identity, and meaning could be shaped by outsiders rather than by those within the institution. Insiders were stunned, not because the decision was dramatic, but because it was final, permanent, and strategic. It wasn't made for today. It was made to protect the monarchy for decades to come. Everyone inside the palace knew one thing: Meghan Markle does not stay silent under pressure. The moment she realized King Charles's decision was absolute, final, non-negotiable, and irreversible, her team sprang into action. Sources say Meghan immediately held an emergency call with her US-based advisors, hours, not days later. PR specialists, brand managers, legal consultants, and media contacts all rushed to assess the situation. Meghan understands the public better than almost anyone. In her world, silence equals defeat. The first priority was damage control. Advisors considered a carefully worded statement framing the palace's decision as harsh or outdated, but that carried risk. Another idea surfaced: a major interview, a new documentary, or a high-profile speech subtly addressing institutional challenges without naming the monarchy. Then came the most concerning idea, insiders say, something that could escalate tensions by using upcoming brand projects to reclaim the narrative, a tactic Meghan has employed before under pressure. One source described the mood bluntly: they weren't planning a calm response, they were planning a counterattack. The challenge is clear: Charles's restrictions mean Meghan cannot reference the royal family without risking backlash. She is now forced to rebuild her public strategy entirely without leaning on the monarchy. Some advisors urged caution, others urged retaliation, but all agreed on one point: if Meghan feels cornered, she will not remain quiet. For her, this is more than a royal setback. It is a fight over narrative, the arena where she exerts her greatest influence. The moment that will be remembered most was not a confrontation, a meeting, or a public announcement. It was a sentence quietly delivered behind closed doors after the final paperwork had been signed, sealed, and entered into the official record. Insiders say someone left the room, took a breath, and uttered two words now echoing across royal commentary: "It's over." It was not dramatic. It was not emotional. It was simply final. King Charles's decision was not a temporary boundary or symbolic gesture. It was a permanent structural choice that closed a chapter Meghan once believed she could revisit. The palace is not waiting for reconciliation. There will be no return, no second chances, no collaboration. This was a line in the sand. For Meghan, it means navigating the future without royal protection or association. For Harry, it deepens the divide between the family he was born into and the one he built, a gap that apologies or calls cannot bridge. For King Charles, it marks a shift from patience to preservation, demonstrating that protecting the monarchy outweighs personal ties. And for the institution itself, it signals a historic moment. But how is the international world reacting to this decision? That is the next chapter, the international backlash. The news of King Charles's final decision was never meant to leave palace walls. It was intended to remain a closely guarded secret, confined to Buckingham Palace and the gates of Montecito. But decisions this monumental, absolute, and historic rarely stay hidden for long. Within days, whispers grew louder, murmurs spread, and leaks began to surface. Curious reporters appeared where they hadn't before, asking pointed questions. Royal watchers noticed subtle changes in official language. International media sensed the story like sharks smelling blood in the water. At first, coverage appeared in cautious, speculative reports. Then articles grew bolder, citing high-level palace insiders. What was meant to be private quickly became global news. Analysts debated it on morning shows, royal commentators declared it the end of an era, and editors scrambled to secure insider quotes explaining the king's reasoning. Some headlines leaned sympathetic toward Meghan, others were ruthless. Almost all agreed on one undeniable fact. The relationship between Meghan Markle and the monarchy had reached a breaking point, one that could never be repaired. Inside Montecito, the atmosphere shifted rapidly. Panic gave way to damage control, which soon hardened into a defensive strategy. Meghan's team tracked every article, monitored online trends, and prepared for the inevitable global wave. Experts warned that this attention would have consequences far beyond headlines, affecting her image, brands, partnerships, future projects, and her ability to control her story without royal interference. One insider described it as a reputational earthquake, the kind that can reshape public perception for years, but Meghan was not about to remain silent. Behind the gates of Montecito, a counter-strategy was already forming. Insiders say it was bold, calculated, and potentially explosive. While the palace remained frozen in silent control, Meghan moved with clarity. When the narrative turns against you, hesitation is dangerous. Pivot, and pivot fast. She immediately began assembling a detailed plan not just for public response, but for long-term survival and influence. This was no longer panic, it was strategy in motion. Her team divided the crisis into manageable segments: public image, brand positioning, media openings, legal boundaries, and emotional leverage. A war room was set up, screens displaying trending analytics, social sentiment charts, news cycles, and influencer reactions. Three paths emerged. Option 1. A quiet reset. Appear in public with calm composure, no defensiveness, no confrontation, letting subtle grace sway sympathy. Option 2. Narrative reclamation. A controlled media appearance, feature, or documentary segment highlighting systemic obstacles she faced, framing the king's decision as a symbol of the institution she left behind. Option 3. A direct counterattack. A bold, pointed statement hinting at injustice, subtly questioning the monarchy's authority, taking the fight head-on. Insiders say this is the path her team quietly favors. Controversy generates attention, attention generates influence. Yet Meghan's greatest challenge isn't just the palace. It's the rules Charles has now imposed. She can no longer hint at royal connections, symbolism, or identity without risking backlash, or even legal consequences. This restriction strikes at the heart of her brand, built in part on royal proximity. A strategist close to her put it bluntly, she must now grow her platform without the very element that fueled her rise. Behind the scenes, Meghan is carefully planning her next moves. Every step must respect the king's boundaries while remaining impactful. From this moment forward, a misstep could widen the gap beyond repair. A clever, calculated move could regain control and reshape public perception. Somewhere in Montecito, amid strategy sessions and crisis meetings, Meghan made a decision her team did not expect. One insiders say could force the palace to rethink its stance. What do you think of Meghan's sudden move to pacify King Charles? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.